Well, I was raised by my grandmother on a small farm in western New York State, just below the Lake Ontario and just north of the Finger Lakes. We lived in a house with no electricity or running water, which was not uncommon in that particular area. The running water was me. I'd go out to the well house and throw a bucket down there and grab the water and then run. Extremely influential in my life, extremely so. Yeah, if I've had any successes in my life, I credit her for those successes. She was a wonderful person. And the one thing that was really important about our relationship is she valued learning above all. We spent a lot of time in the encyclopedia, and every evening at supper she would quiz me on what I'd studied during the day. As a result, I have a lifelong love of learning. Here's the whole school, which was 20 students, with one teacher whose name was Pearl Baltz. I'll never forget that. She was disciplinarian, but she was terrific, and it was just a wonderful place to study because we had 4 grades. So if you're in first grade, you're hearing fourth grade work. So by the time I got to 4th grade, I was doing 6th or 7th grade work. And that really, again, along with my grandmother's help, really set me on the course that I finally followed. Why the Navy? I had literally never seen the ocean when I went into the Navy, and I ended up spending years aboard a ship traveling all over the world on the ocean. But where I lived, people were farmers, and at age 16, most people would quit school and go to work on the family farm, and that's where they would spend their lifetimes. That's not what I had in mind doing, and so I signed up to go into the Navy. I lied about my age because I was too young to go in the Navy. So, by the way, they found out, but it was too late when they found out I was old enough at that point. And they sent me to electronics school. Actually, I wanted to be a hospital corpsman, so they sent me to electronics school, of course. And then I asked to go aboard a ship right away, and I did. I went aboard a Navy destroyer, which was older than I was. It was built in, I think, 1939, and had been all through World War II. And we traveled all over the world. I remember arriving at the ship in the middle of the night in Newport, Rhode Island, and I could smell the sea, but I couldn't see it, and I had never seen the sea. So the next morning, they said something like, "Set the special sea detail," and I said, "Oh, where are we going?" He said, "Oh, well, we're going to the Middle East." So my first day aboard ship, we were underway, and we actually spent 85 days at sea before we came back. Actually, I thought about a career in the Navy, and I went to officer candidate school. I was sent there, and I was commissioned, and I was sent to serve as the executive officer of an ocean-going tugboat. Now, that doesn't sound like a good assignment, but we're talking about a very large ship that could tow battleships. And it was really a nice assignment. And it was a good learning place for me. And the captain left the ship, and so I ended up as the captain of this ocean-going tugboat. And then I was injured in an accident, and that was the end of my Navy career. Actually, it was quite an adjustment because I'd never lived in an adult world before, and all of a sudden I had to start doing some real work, I guess. So I was lucky. I landed a job as the assistant to the director of a research group at a university, and the university had a computer center, a major computer center, and this is, very, very early in the age of computers. So I was intrigued, and I went down to the computer center and I started hanging out and everybody was very accommodating and helped me learn, and so I went through a whole progression of assignments relating to computers while at the university. And we started a small company, which my friend called International Data Corporation, which I thought was kind of fanciful considering that there was only two of us, and we were operating in Massachusetts. But the company, we found a niche market, and the company succeeded virtually instantly. I mean, we actually put no capital in the company at all, not a dollar. And the product we offered the service we offered was immediately adopted by virtually every computer company in the United States. I decided that I would go off and go to the Harvard Business School and become a professor of business administration. So I did go to the Harvard Business School, and at the end of 2 years there, the master's program, I decided I didn't want to be in business anymore. So I studied law, and at the same time I studied for a master's degree in public administration, and got the degrees, and then went looking for something to do. One of the things that I often did was to travel by train from Washington, D.C. to Boston through New York. I was on that train quite often. Actually, I was on that train with Joe Biden quite frequently, believe it or not. He used the train every single day. So anyway, one of the things that attracted me about the city I ended up settling in was it was so green. There was just trees everywhere. And I thought, I need to settle down someplace. So I just practically just got off the train, and that became my permanent home. Okay, why don't we put you to work there? And I said, well, I'm not sure that's really what I want to do. He said, well, you can do it for a while. Okay, so he sent me to the Superior Court. I joined the court in June of 1972. And you can imagine the situation. It's sort of like I appear and say, well, I'm here to change everything. I was as popular as the plague. But I did my apprenticeship, as it were, and dug in and did the best I could. And I thought, well, this is an assignment I'll do for a couple of years, and then I'll move on to something else. And so 33 years later, I retired. I spent the rest of my working life working in the courts. Well, I had some rather unpleasant surgery, and the surgeon sent me home and said, take a couple of months off. And, well, after about 3 days, I was climbing up the walls. So I got a dowel, a wooden dowel, and I went out the front door and used that as a cane, and I headed up to up the block, and I went probably 100 yards, and that was it. And I worked at it, and finally I was walking all over the city, and it was really helping me. My health improved tremendously because of it. So I really got into walking and then ultimately hiking. So Delaware has a number of very, very fine parks with about 40 different hiking trails. So I went out and I hiked all of those trails twice. And well, what do I do next? I thought, oh, I know. I'll go out to Arizona and hike in and out of the Grand Canyon. Well, I'd seen the Grand Canyon from the air many, many times, but I had no idea what it was going to be like. And it's just a breathtaking place, absolutely incredible. But also it was a huge physical challenge too. So I hiked from the South Rim to the Colorado River, and then up to the North Rim, and then back down to the Colorado River, and then back to the South Rim. And I just enjoyed it. I'd love to go back. what do I do next? And I thought, well, maybe I'll hike the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine. So I went down to Georgia and walked to Maine, which took me roughly 2.5 months to do. And that was in 1999. And then I thought, gee, I really enjoyed that. I think I'll do it again. So in 2000, I went back down to Georgia and hiked to Maine again. Well, when I was in hiking in the second time on the Appalachian Trail, I met a man from Florida who was hiking from Key West, Florida to Cap Gaspé in Quebec, or in the Gaspésie, of course. And I thought, gee, I don't think I could do that. I think that's just a little bit too much. So in 2003, I went down to Key West, Florida, and I headed north, and which I had no idea that it was going to change my life so profoundly, which in fact it clearly did. Well, the hiking in the Florida Everglades was the most difficult thing I ever did in my entire lifetime. The Everglades system includes a cypress swamp. So I really wasn't prepared for what I got into. So I headed into the big cypress, and I spent 4 days hiking through the swamp up to my knees in water the entire time. It was very hot, I won't forget that. And of course, I'm literally surrounded by alligators, which never gave me a problem, by the way. When I arrived in Metapedia to start the SEA, the trail, I met a lady who was very, very nice, very pleasant, and who did not speak a word of English, but we communicated. And my French is non-existent. And so over the course of the next month, as we traveled across the Gaspésie, we got to know each other. And at one point, we got a dictionary. And we literally would pass the dictionary back and forth, pointing at words to try to communicate. Been married 16 years. I discovered that Marie-Josée was a coiffeuse. So I asked her if I could come and get a haircut. And she agreed that I could. And I went back to the US, and then 2 weeks later I needed another haircut, so I came back. And I got regular haircuts. I'm living in the US and I'm getting my haircut in the Gaspésie.